Hello, this is Aleksy Rodriguez, and this is video number 2 of 3. And in this video, I want to talk about business analytics for producing performance visibility, business intelligence, and for creating business strategy recommendations. The third video will be strictly on business analytics as it relates to the development of data into information, into intelligence, which is later used to develop business strategies. This is something very similar, but it's more it has more of a subjective flow to it. This is the other section that I'll be talking about. This one's a lot more objective, and it's a lot more rigid. So I'll go through the summary first. Again, I want to talk about how business analytics is used for producing performance visibility, business intelligence, and creating business strategy recommendations. And I structured this in the way and fashion that I go about working when I arrive at an organization for the first time. So one of the first things that I do is, when I arrive at an organization, is I want to understand what types of products and services an organization is offering. Are they offering few standardized products, or are they offering many complex products, or a combination of the both? And the next question I ask myself is, how is the organization delivering these products and or services to their customers? How do they deliver them, and what kind of products are they? And then the two main questions that typically follow me for the remainder of my tenure at an organization are: what is a perfect service delivery scenario, meaning a service delivery scenario that requires little to no operational effort? And what types of common service delivery issues exist? Which is the exact opposite. What type of service delivery scenarios are there where operational demand is much higher than it should be, in the perspective of the organization, of course? So those two questions will typically follow me throughout my entire tenure at an organization, and they go on to become topics for additional intelligence and the development of strategies and agendas to reduce cost and operational effort and customer effort, etc., etc. So the next item I want to touch is what type of systems an organization is using to capture their data and information. There could be POS systems, CRM systems, CMS systems. There's a number of different kinds of systems. But what's important about the systems is that each system is going to have a different way of capturing data. Now, what do I mean by capturing data? An ERP system will have a series of forms, and those forms allow for data to be entered either manually or through auto-population or automatically. Now, once that data is entered by XYZ mechanism, that data is then deposited into a repository for that data capturing system. So once I get to that point, I always go to the IT department or to the data and analytics department within an organization and ask, hey, from all this data that exists on these forms, what data can I access? Can I access the notes to a customer's account? Can I access the zip code? Can I access the 4-digit annex to a zip code if you're in the United States? If you're in Mexico, Mexico is is pretty popular because they have or at least within the transportation world, because they have a fourth political division, which is basically like a neighborhood. In the United States, you also have neighborhood, but in Mexico, a neighborhood is a colonia. It's a little bit more formal, and you have to include that in the address. So I always like to ask what type of information, or what information from the data capturing system is available to be reported on, whether it's from the repository or whether it's through the reporting platform that the organization is using. Next, I want to talk about raw data versus data that's available via the analytics or reporting platform. Typically, you can look at the data on an actual form in whatever system or systems it is that an organization is using to capture data, and then you can look at the data via the reporting platform. Or you can do three comparisons. You can look at the data on the form, you can look at the data when it's in the repository from the data capturing system, and then you can look at the data when it's in the reporting platform. And you can compare all three versions of that data. Depending on what you're trying to do within an organization, or if you're trying to build a data model or some type of simulation, or if you need to segment data, sometimes data in those different stages will be more useful, will be more efficient to work with. And me personally, I always like to look at the data to see how well the continuity of the data is preserved. Does the data get distorted? Does it get summarized too much? Does too much useless information get tacked on to the original data, etc., etc.? And then the last question that I ask myself is, what changes are made to the data? How are the changes made, and why? A lot of times folks in the IT department or BI department within an organization, they're typically going to do what they're told to do by the business users. Sometimes business users know what they need to accomplish or to overcome a business obstacle. However, the changes that they request be made to data to overcome that business obstacle create other reporting and data inefficiencies within the data warehouse. Sometimes those things have to be reverse engineered, sometimes they have to be reversed, sometimes two data attributes aren't meant to be put together, and simply they can be made available to the user to join on their own via the reporting platform. And doing that type of detective work comes in pretty handy when you run into merge data fields and summarize data fields and all that sorts of fun stuff. The next item I want to touch is performance visibility. What is performance visibility? Performance visibility is basically anything that is an indicator of performance. And then you can take those KPIs and you can summarize them or format them and put them in reports, or you can make them accessible through dashboards. And at the end of the day, they're probably going to end up on a department scorecard, which is going to go up to the CEO. So the first thing I want to talk about is identifying key data points that are reflective of the degree of effort that goes into service delivery. Remember the first two questions that I always ask myself? One of them already resurfaced. And I typically get at this stage within an organization after being at an organization for around 5 or 7 months, somewhere in that timeline. And that's when I start asking myself, what data point is reflective of additional effort of the organization going into the service delivery? And then the next question is, what data or what data points are going to help me anticipate when the organization has to put forth extra effort to deliver their service? And if you can anticipate that, you can put that information in front of a supervisor or a manager, and they can coach the folks on their team or the people on their team, and you can probably circumvent that and save time, effort, and money. Then once you have all that information, and once you know what the key data points are, and once you know what the data points are that will help you anticipate some of that stuff, you can then ask yourself, how should I aggregate the data? Or what's the best way to aggregate the data? Should I use a sum? Should I use an average? Should I take a snapshot 4 times a day and average that or sum that, etc., etc.? And there's no single best answer. The answer is typically going to be curtailed to what the organization needs to accomplish or what a department needs to accomplish. The next question I ask myself as it relates to performance visibility is, what are the technical capabilities of the audience that's going to be consuming the data and information as it relates to performance visibility? In other words, what I'm saying is, how technical savvy is a manager or a supervisor to which I'm going to give reporting and dashboards to? And why is that important? That's important because that manager or supervisor is more than likely probably going to use that information to coach their team. So they're probably going to copy paste in Excel. They're probably going to organize the data by different people on their team, by a different day of the week, or by different months in the year, and stack rank everyone on their team's performance. Now, that sounds pretty simple, but there's some supervisors and managers that are great at managing people, but not that good with technology. So when you're designing a report and a dashboard, that's something that you also have to take into account. That's something that I take into account. And there's nothing better within an organization than helping people help their people. It's efficient. Supervisors and managers are in organizations to do exactly that. Supervise and manage. They shouldn't have to be manipulating or summarizing data to the point where it's not allowing them to manage and supervise the people on their team. And then the next thing that I like to analyze is, what frequency should a supervisor or manager receive a report or a dashboard? Should it be on demand? Should they receive it daily? Should they receive it monthly? And the answer to that is all the above. I typically make some reports available on demand. I make some delivered automatically daily, some weekly and some monthly, depending on who the user is and what they need it for. At the end of the day, the goal is to get information in front of managers and supervisors so that when their team isn't going in the direction that the organization wants them to, that they can quickly adapt and quickly correct whatever needs to be corrected to change that direction. And the last topic as it relates to performance visibility is, what KPIs are important to a department versus what KPIs are important to an organization. Now, a department scorecard might have 20 KPIs, but once that scorecard is sent up to senior level management or C-level management, those 20 KPIs are probably going to be truncated down to 5, because a departmental scorecard is going to be merged with other department scorecards to end up with an organizational scorecard. So, and the CEO isn't going to look at 60 different KPIs, but he may look at 20, or she may look at 20. So it's also very important to huddle with everybody on your team to discuss and decide what KPIs are necessary and relevant to the department in the eyes of the department, and what KPIs are important and relevant to the department in the eyes of the leaders of the organization. When I say leaders, I mean the CEO, the CFO, and the COO. So, the last topic I want to cover is making business strategy suggestions. How would you go about making business strategy suggestions, or how do I go about suggesting what strategies an organization should pursue from the perspective of an operations department? So, what service delivery improvement opportunity exists and how much of it? That's the first thing that I like to find an answer for. And then I can make that suggestion to my superiors. Here in operations is typically orchestrating the delivery of service, and there's always opportunity to improve the delivery of service for XYZ reason. Again, going back to the two questions. What is a perfect service delivery scenario, and what types of common service delivery issues exist? So if I could eliminate all these service delivery issues, how much time, effort, and money can I save? Question mark, question mark. That would be for me to find out when I arrive at an organization. And I typically arrive at this stage at an organization after being at an organization for around 12 to 16 months. After being at an organization for about 12 to 16 months, I get to this point where I can make recommendations on strategies to reduce time, effort, and reduce cost. And typically associate some type of dollar figure to that. So the next question I like to ask myself and then find an answer for is, how much additional operational effort is associated to which processes in what scenarios? What do I mean by that? So question number 2 of the first topic that I covered. What types of common service delivery issues exist? These issues are typically going to exist during certain processes. There could be a certain process to capture customer information. Customer information could be difficult to capture because the customer service agent has to go to a different screen. You end up with more typing errors. Customer service agents take more time. Their AHT can increase, and they're probably not going to like that because it's going to affect their pay for performance, and they're probably going to want to rush through that, so they'll probably make mistakes, and those mistakes can probably cost money because when the customer calls back in and you want to look up their account, maybe the information wasn't inputted correctly into their account. Maybe it went into somebody else's account. The idea is to find the root cause within the processes that are creating those issues. That's just one example. You can do the same fishbone analysis or root cause analysis with many processes within an organization that are associated to service delivery. Okay, so other low-hanging fruit related to processes in an organization. I think something very common within a lot of organizations is the type of products and services that an organization sells. Some products and services are a lot easier to service than others. For example, if you have umbrella coverage, car insurance, it's going to cover everything. Now, once you start adding exclusions to an insurance product, it becomes a little bit more tedious, a little bit more difficult for a customer service representative to interpret what's included and what's not included. That can take time, misinterpretation. It could affect the profit and loss performance of a given product, not because the product isn't good, not because the marketing team didn't do a good job, but because the customer service agents are misinterpreting the information because the product is so complex. A product can have one exclusion, a product could have 20 exclusions. So, the last item that I want to touch as it relates to making suggestions for business strategies is the human capital and training aspect of service delivery. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what I just discussed about having complex products. Now, having complex product and having an agent that's having difficulty interpreting that information is one side of the coin. The other side of the coin that a lot of organizations face is, I can hire human capital at a higher rate and they're going to have better performance, but it's going to cost me more money. So when I hit my peak seasons or XYZ reason, I'm going to spend a lot more money than I probably want to. And the other option is, I'm going to hire employees of a lesser caliber. I'm going to save money. However, that can cost me later down the road when those employees are trying to interpret my complicated T's and C's for certain products and services. And they both have trade-offs, but it's something to analyze, and it's something that a dollar value can be associated to. So that's all I'll be covering in this video. Again, thank you for watching. My name is Aleksy Rodriguez. This is video 2 of 3.